12,000 years ago, at the end of the last ice age, modern peatlands began to form all over northern Europe and North America. In natural peatlands, decomposition processes are slower than the annual inputs of new plant material to the soil, leading to net accumulation of peat. Scottish peatlands hold more than 1.6 gigatons of carbon, which would otherwise have been lost to the atmosphere. However, the importance of peatlands as greenhouse gas storage areas was not generally recognised until the late 1980s, by which time substantial damage had been done to our peatlands. Take a look at the map of Scotland in front of you. All the peat areas are shaded in light brown. 25% of the Scottish landmass is covered in peat soil. Unfortunately, more than half of this area has been affected by human activities such as drainage, peat extraction or conversion to other land uses that led to erosion or changes in the vegetation. Since the mid-1990s, there have been concerted efforts to restore peatlands, with over 150 areas undergoing work until the present day. Andrew McBride leads the current Peatland Action Restoration Programme.
One of the things that happens with a raised bog is the peat that forms that raised bog accumulates year on year, very, very slowly, about 1 millimetre every year. So you can imagine where I'm sitting here, this has actually taken thousands of years to actually accumulate. So what is this peat that's forming so slowly? Well, it's actually bits of vegetation that don't fully decompose. Bogs are very acid, and that's enhanced by the very wet conditions that they form in. This peat is actually full of carbon. When peat is dry, about 50% of the weight of that is actually pure carbon. So this is one of the reasons why we have to look after our bogs, to make sure that carbon actually stays here rather than being given off into the atmosphere and further enhancing climate change. The peat in Scotland's bogs holds about 140 years of Scotland PLC carbon emissions. So all the cars and everything that is emitting carbon is held in our bogs, and what we've got to try and do is keep that carbon there. And in the future, the beauty of bogs is they can actually start to hold carbon through the vegetation and that accumulation of peat year after year.
If you look behind you over there, you can see what happens when the peat actually starts to dry out. It started to crack, it started to shrink. And that's partly because it's losing water, but also it's losing carbon to the atmosphere. When the rains do finally come, that won't actually swell back out to its original size. It actually doesn't come back to its normal size because you've lost part of the carbon to it. Up here on this side, by contrast, there's no dry peat. That peat is in its original form. It's actually staying put rather than being released into the atmosphere. So on a normal day, we've got water coming over these things here, and you can see from a wildlife point of view, things like this dragonfly that's hawking down here coming towards me. There it is, and coming towards you, having a look at us, seeing what's actually happening. This is where it's actually hunting for other insects. Underneath this, there is actually a dam. Let's see if we can find it. No, wait a minute. Yeah, there's the dam, right under there. You can just see the wood showing through, but you can see actually how the sphagnum has actually started building up. And this sphagnum is actually holding as much carbon as trees. If you have 25 centimetres of sphagnum growth like this, you've actually got equivalent of what some full-size commercial plantation trees are actually holding in terms of carbon. So there's a massive amount of storage of carbon going on in there.